Hello, thank you for joining me. This is a cat-cow tutorial that was requested. So here I am, cat-cow tutorial. You're gonna come onto your hands and your knees. For those of you who are unfamiliar with cat-cow is simply an arching of the back followed by a rounding of the back. So this is the basic movement. There are a couple of areas people get really stuck. The first is if you lack adequate wrist mobility, it is difficult to maintain the torso position. What I mean by that is if your wrists are tight, for lack of a better word, if you are unable to lie your hands flat on the ground with your arms straight, then when the person goes to round and arch your back, you will lean away from the wrists. The second area people get stuck is if they don't have good straight arm strength. Straight arm strength means you can bear load in a dispersed way from the heel of the palm up to your shoulder with your arms straight. A lot of people don't actually have that. And what will happen instead is a lot of that. So if you fall into either of those categories, if you lack wrist mobility or you lack straight arm strength, the solution is to do this on your forearms and your knees. That way, you can actually isolate the movement through the spine, which is where it's technically designed to mobilize. From here, go ahead and pick whichever variation works best for you based on what you've got going on. So I'm going to come onto my hands and my knees. I'm going to set up so my shoulders are over my wrists and my knees are under my hips or thereabouts. And I'm going to see if I can make sure that as I do this, that my torso doesn't shift forward or back. As I exhale, I'm going to let my ribs move away from the floor. My head and my pelvis will follow. As I inhale, I'm going to let my ribs move to the floor, my head and my torso will follow. So exhale, ribs move, head, pelvis follows. Inhale, ribs, head, pelvis. I'm purposely doing this from the rib position to start. Take one more round. Exhale. Inhale. Rest for a moment. You can also initiate from a variety of other places. So let's look at what happens when we initiate from the pelvis. I'm only starting with the pelvis because I find it easier to start at the pelvis as opposed to the head. Other people feel differently. Other people find the head is easier to initiate from than the pelvis. So take your hands under your shoulders, your knees under your hips. And I want you to gently tip your pelvis so you're taking your tail between your legs. As you do that, see if you can imagine your spine is like a slinky. So each rung of the slinky begins to follow, with the head last. Now move your tail towards the ceiling and let the corresponding parts of the spine follow. Tail goes between the legs. Tail goes up towards the ceiling. And start to let it be smoother and a little faster. And relax. All right. So where would the breathing be for that? Well, as you kind of wave through it. At the apex of the wave should be kind of the bottom of your exhale. If you're trying to coordinate this with breath, that just maximizes the mobility that you will get from your mediastinum, which is the middle back. So if I begin with my pelvis, I start my exhale. Oops, let me try that again. This is the apex, and then exhale. And you could certainly try the breathing reversed, and it would feel different, which is the beauty of working breath with spinal mobility. When you change how you're breathing, it will change what you experience through your vertebral column and through the ribs and through the pelvis and through the head. So let's look at this now from initiating at the head. Same thing, I'll go slowly at first, and then we'll pick up the pace a little bit. This is essentially like doing spinal waves in a hands and knees position. So to begin, hands and knees, I'm going to tuck my chin. I'm going to let all of the vertebrae follow. And then I'm going to start to look up. Until my pelvis follows. So my head looks down. And then my head looks up. And go ahead and relax. So again, let's look at this slightly sped up. And the breathing, if you're going to match the breath with it, would be the same. You would exhale as you come into flexion and inhale as you come into extension, though you could reverse it and play with that and see what happens. Hands and knees. And again, I'm just leading with my head. When I get to the apex, I immediately reverse it. I exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. You can also do these exact same inquiries or playful movement patterns with your hands in different positions. So you don't have to keep your hands directly under your shoulders. You could stagger your hands and walk them to the left a little bit. And maybe just start with a basic cat-cow and then see what it's like to initiate from different places. Ooh, it's harder with my head. Go different speeds. Do one with the head, one with the pelvis. I could come back to center. I could just take my right hand closer to my right knee. I could do the same thing. Maybe start with basic. I could take my right hand and my right knee closer to each other. See what happens there. Playing with the breathing the entire time. Could take my knees wide. Take my knees narrow. You're starting to get the idea, I hope. So the only thing that limits you in regards to what happens in cat-cow is your imagination. So go ahead and play with that. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.